Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. This week has been a huge movie week on The Movie Wire, so big we are splitting it into a couple different episodes that will all be released this week. But for today, we have 4 brand new films to review, and we bring back our young critic Brooklyn to join me in a review in yet another Halloween movie for October. This week on the show, Hulu has opened Pandora's box to remake the Clive Barker horror classic in Hellraiser. After years apart from her best friend, Cecilia is invited to her best friend's secluded bachelorette party when her past comes back to haunt her in Sissy. Abby and Gretchen grapple with an otherworldly demon that takes up residence in Gretchen's body in My Best Friend's Exorcism. And the Sanderson sisters are back in the long-awaited sequel, and Brooklyn makes her return to help review Hocus Pocus 2. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
And here we go.
Out of the windows, what? A roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is.
We just need people like me.
Podcast for hot and trendy movies.
The Wire.
The year is 1988. High school sophomores Abby and Gretchen have been best friends since 4th grade, but after an evening of skinny dipping goes disastrously wrong, Gretchen begins to act different, and bizarre things keep happening whenever she's nearby. Abby's investigation leads her to some startling discoveries, and by the time their story reaches its terrifying conclusion, the fate of Abby and Gretchen will be determined by a single question. Is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil?
I can't believe you're moving this summer.
We're always gonna be friends.
Pick you up in town?
It's gonna be hot this weekend. Should we do something?
Think we're alone now. The beating of our hearts is the only sound.
Who's over there?
This weird little building where that girl was sacrificed in a satanic ritual.
Let's go in. Come on, Abs. One more adventure?
Where were you? Where were you?
Your friend, she get sick? Physically, she got all grotesque and gnarly. But then she got better, right? She looks copacetic, but up here, you can cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
I guess that's one way to put it.
Dollars to donuts, it's demonic possession. She needs an exorcism.
You want my best friend back, you piece of shit!
What was that?
Hot damn, we got ourselves a demon! Woo!
Think we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be anyone around.
Based on the book of the same name by Grady Hendrix, My Best Friend's Exorcism is now a Prime Video exclusive. There's a lot to appreciate with what My Best Friend's Exorcism tries to offer. A possession, demons, and an 80s setting. But my problem with this movie is that it takes itself way too seriously for what it's trying to do, and at times can be either too slapstick or too serious for what it's trying to accomplish. There's no in between. The balance is just like a teeter-totter. The film was directed by Damon Thomas, whose work is mainly dark-themed TV series or miniseries, and written by Jenna Lamia from MTV's show Awkward in her first full-length movie writing credit, in which the writing isn't absolutely horrible here. It has some moments that you might just let out a small ha, but the movie is just not consistent as it progresses. But where she does succeed is putting our characters in interesting situations with some comic brief banter, but it really doesn't follow through to make itself anything memorable. The writing tends to struggle to find what kind of movie it wants to be. It's either too serious or it's way too over the top. There's little to no in between, and that's the most frustrating thing about the writing. Director Damon Thomas seems to struggle on his tone and consistent setting as well. There are times where you can get a real 80s vibe while watching this flick, but there are times where it loses its feel, and that's when the movie tends to fall apart. And this is all mainly in the middle of the film. The movie starts to forget it's set in the 80s, the music gets lamer, the story and dialogue gets duller, and this is where all the characters just get really, really, really dumb. And again, there's no clarity if this is on purpose, if it's supposed to be a farce, or if it's supposed to be serious. The dialogue tends to point to being serious. There's a point where we have our possessed Gretchen go about her normal high school life, but has gone through some physical and some obvious behavioral changes. And Abby tries to warn adults in charge that something is wrong. The parents try and cover it up, and the school doesn't believe Abby. Anybody that looks at Gretchen and interacts with her should obviously know that something is wrong. Her appearance becomes to the point that somebody needs to shout, "Go see a doctor." Her behavior is at the point where somebody needs to shout, "Go see a psychiatrist." Nobody questions this in this movie, but all the characters are so oblivious to this, and the filmmakers are taking it too serious, and nobody is having a good time while looking at these characters, including the viewers. The one thing giving this film a shed of hope is when we are introduced to the Lemon Brothers, a trio of brother bodybuilders that are bodybuilders for Christ. The brothers give motivational speeches at Abby and Gretchen's school. The scene gave me a good laugh, and more specifically, one of the brothers, Christian Lemon, played by Christopher Lowell, from the fantastic Netflix show Glow. Now, Abby seeks out Christian to help with the possession of Gretchen as they sit in the food court and have a conversation about the events. It threw me back to watching the amazing chemistry between Charlie and Peter Vincent from 1985's Fright Night. I thought to myself while watching Abby and Christian, this could have been such a different movie. These two and the brief screen time they have is the best part of the movie. They shared a better chemistry than Abby and Gretchen do, and they're best friends. When Lowell is on screen, he is electric and he really gets into the character in a comedic way. I would say he's over the top, which he absolutely is, but his character is a symbol and sign of what tone this film should have went with. The movie should have gone with an 80s vibe that is self-aware of itself being in the 80s, a possessed high schooler and a bodybuilding exorcist that teams up with the underdog to perform an exorcism, with a Fright Night chemistry and feel. That's the movie I wanted. Count me in on that movie. That's a movie I would like to see. Elsie Fisher as Abby and Amia Miller as Gretchen are believable in their own roles individually and are very convincing in the skin of their characters. But again, the problem is 1, the writing isn't really funny for the two of them to work with, and 2, the chemistry between them just doesn't work. My Best Friend's Exorcism is a disappointing mess of a movie. It misses everything that could have made it special, and it is advertised as a comedy horror thriller. Is it scary? No. Is it funny? Not really. Is it thrilling? Not at all. It's a frustrating example of what could have been. I'm giving My Best Friend's Exorcism 1.5 stars. Now, before we get into the rest of the show, don't forget to check out my reviews for movies that just hit streaming and are available to rent or buy now, including Bullet Train, Bodies, 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 Spirit Halloween, The Movie, Jeepers Creepers Reborn, Nope, Rob Zombie the Monsters, and Fall. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MovieWireShow. Now let's hear from our two charming Brits that should be the real replacements for James Bond. Yes, both of them. And that's Dan and Lou over at Casting Views.
I'm Dan.
I'm Lou, and together we are Casting Views.
An uncle and nephew chatting on random topics, some heavy, some fun, but we aim to amuse.
Don't miss out, don't delay. Subscribe to Casting Views today.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Good Pods.
A take on Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic where a young woman struggling with addictions comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites, a group of sadistic supernatural beings from another dimension.
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's really nice.
You can hold it.
What is it?
It's a puzzle.
And it's almost finished. Keep going. So if I solve it, do I get a prize?
I do.
What's your deal? It has 6 sides, 6 configurations. It opens up, and it cuts you. And then they come to collect.
It's time. Greater delights await. We wish to see you proceed. Feed it. Their blood, their pain. All for us. What is it you pray for?
There is enough from the 1987 version to make a remake inevitable for this franchise. The original Hellraiser was an original horror vision by Clive Barker, and I have had this conversation numerous times if it was too ahead of its time when it comes to technical aspects or even story. With the popularity of the golden age of slasher films from 1978 to 84 respectively, horror had to adjust itself as well as the studios to bring a new age of horror and to give different visions. This made way for studios to take chances on writers and directors such as Clive Barker, who wrote and helmed the original. Fast forward to 2022, we are in a crossroads in horror as well, where we see more and more horror films see a push of evolution to cater to the audience as an elevated horror. That doesn't include just your standard hack and slash gore fest. We have more and more visions of horror start to challenge the mind and attack our mental fears as well as jump scares. Smile and Barbarian are good examples of this that I have recently reviewed. Given the topic of multi-dimensional hell, Pandora's Box redemption, and scary demon-like creatures called Cenobites, there is a lot here to give us a true different take on Hellraiser, and even take it to an elevated level with the given material. In full disclosure, while I can respect the original and the original idea of what it was trying to do, it had a very dark, scary element to it, but it relied on the idea versus having the characters help support the idea. I found the original just okay holistically as a horror movie, but with memorable, scary horror characters, just not memorable human characters. The vision and the atmosphere was there, just really nothing else. Hellraiser was never my cup of tea, but I always came back to watch the sequels as a fun, popcorn, scary Friday night kind of movie with a group of friends. Sadly, after 35 years and countless sequels, the movie adds nothing fresh here except some better achievements in atmospheric attention. There are scenes and camera shots that really do look good and give us a good atmosphere, but where director David Bruckner fails is really underutilizing his environments to his full potential to truly make the environment feel like a whole other character. Bunker tends to really rush a lot of these greatly shot scenes to give us a bigger focus more on the characters that we can honestly care less about, and they seem to come out of the same generic store-bought cereal box. They all seem to just blend together and have none of their own personalities, and the dialogue doesn't separate or contrast the characters to make them interesting to watch on screen. It's like the writers Ben Collins, Luke Picostri, and David S. Goyer wrote a long story, cut out all the lines, dumped them in a hat, and just assigned them to a character. Our most seasoned writer here is David S. Goyer, who has a roller coaster of credits from the TV movie Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring David Hasselhoff, Kickboxer 2, to Dollman vs. Demonic Toys, and he goes all the way up to some really decent pieces of work from 1998's Dark City, Batman Begins, and the Blade trilogy, which is unfortunate. This sends Goyer straight back to his early glory days of going straight to video. Now you can tell there is some effort put into the Cenobites, but as odd as it sounds, when they are on screen the tone seems to get lighter, not darker, to almost show off the technical efforts of our demons. This throws off the tone of the film and even so throws off the wonder and fear of the Cenobites. Jamie Clayton, who plays our new Pinhead, even though I can appreciate and love the idea of a female lead in this role, the dialogue holds her back and gives Clayton nothing to work with, and her performance therefore actually runs pretty stale. There's no added creepiness to her performance other than the visuals, but even then, there's nothing added that's new. It's almost like a step backwards from the design. In a lot of ways, this makes me appreciate the design and the darker tone from the original a lot more after watching this. At a 2-hour runtime, which is a half hour more than the original, the 2022 version doesn't feel like it's added anything, but rather taken away. The additional runtime seems to have added technical scenes to show off the new special effects to give the impression that it should be better than the original, and to distract from the utter general staleness of the characters. The story itself had a potential of being unique enough to take Hellraiser somewhere, but it's consistently chasing its tail in circles. It follows the formula. Show the characters. Characters fondle box. Characters get pricked by box. Demons show up. Now repeat for the next 2 hours. Even the hardcore fan of the franchise of gory horror films, this will leave a bitter disappointment in some aspects. It doesn't push the envelope or give us that, oh, did you see that moment? Except for one visually stunning scene towards the very end. Hellraiser was screaming for a remake given the unique story, memorable horror figures, and new technical achievements and special effects. The remake wasted a good story, took our memorable horror figures backwards, not forwards, and though some of the effects were stylish, it took away from a lot of the fear factor. Even though I wasn't a hardcore fan of the original, this remake does something very unique. It made me go back to the original that I wasn't a huge fan of in the first place and actually appreciate it and Clive Barker's vision a lot more. I'm giving Hellraiser 1.5 stars. It gets so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there's a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. Teen best friends Cecilia and Emma run into each other after a decade of being apart. Cecilia is invited on Emma's bachelorette weekend, where she gets stuck in a remote cabin with her high school bully, with a taste of revenge.
To celebrate sincerely Cecilia reaching 200,000 followers. Wow. I'm giving all of my friends 50% off my new bespoke non-allergenic therapy robes.
Needed this to brand. The world needs more people like you.
Sissy? Oh my God, it's you.
It's been like 12 years?
You remember me, right? Yeah.
I just can't picture myself without her.
I was thinking about you the other day, and now here you are. You should come to my hens weekend. Die.
So what's your thing? Are you like a model?
No, definitely not.
She's an influencer.
An influencer?
Well, I'm more like a mental health advocate.
I'm sorry, but I can't help but find it all a little bit ironic. Once upon a time, she lost her mind and she tried to murder me. I'm not Sissy! Of all people, Sissy is preaching mental health.
Cecilia.
What are you, rebranding?
When we form a circle around ourselves, we are reminded that we carry with us an invisible boundary. No one enters but us. It's our very own safe space. And we never, ever have to leave it.
Hey, friends! Cecilia is not as sincere as you think she is.
I am loved. I am special. I am enough.
It's supposed to be me and Emma. That was supposed to be us. Stop the car.
I am doing my best.
Stop the car!
Sissy is a movie that can go two ways. One will be over-focused on the theme and forget about the thrills, or two, it will just be another secluded slasher picture. Sissy does something unique when it comes to what it tries to do here, and there is a lot of topics and points on this movie's plate to try and balance, from the topics of bullying, social media obsession, a person's breaking point, vengeance, friendship, and redemption. But rest assured, writers and directors Hannah Barlow and Kane Scenes has everything under control. The movie stars Aisha D as Cecilia, or her friends call her Sissy, who runs into her best friend Emma, played by writer-director Hannah Barlow. And after years of being apart and running into each other, Emma invites Cecilia to her bachelorette party. Little does she know, not everybody at the party wants her there, including Alex, played by Emily D. Margheriti, who bullied Cecilia as a child. The movie never gives too much away on why in its progression. It lets us fester on the growing social tension between Alex and Cecilia and slowly introduces the rest of the party attendees into the conflict between the two. There is a scene in Sissy that is a pretty brilliant example of our social groups and how bullying actions and comments can infest others like the plague to ensure they are not the target of an attack of the bully or seem different from the group of friends. It is where we have all the party attendees eating dinner, where Cecilia is asked what she does. Cecilia explains that she is an influencer to promote positivity, but in no way is she an expert. The dinner table, one by one, starts to turn on Cecilia and her acknowledged success and turn it into an attack on her as a person. We can really start to feel for Cecilia, almost to the point we want to jump into the screen and defend her. But at the same time, the film keeps our emotions in check due to the fact we still don't know a lot about Cecilia. There is an obvious mystery that the movie hangs above our head about our main character, but you do feel for her because she adds a new fear internally for the audience, is that Cecilia is stranded and secluded with these people that have a negative outlook on her, and she's not automatically running around like a serial killer in a secluded area just to hack and slash just because. The movie is a slow burn, but moves briskly with its pacing thanks in part to the chemistry and energetic characters. Sissy is well balanced out when it comes to its pacing, where I never wanted the film to just hurry up and get to the point. I was truly intrigued seeing these characters interact with each other. Now, at times the performances can seem over the top, and it sets the movie back just a little bit. More specifically, Emily D. Margheriti's as Alex's performance that seems to go more towards the Mean Girls approach. Even as an adult, she tends to try and act like a high schooler rather than a mature adult. And even her attempts at intimidating Cecilia comes across amateurish, and we would see something like that in a high school character, and the movie, you can tell, makes it where it's not intentional. With that aside, Aisha D as Cecilia's performance is well balanced with how many emotions she has to portray. She does a fantastic job here telling her side of the story without telling us directly, keeping her story a mystery and portraying herself as she wants to be seen. Just like one of her Instagram followers, Sissy doesn't stick to the normal cliche of using social media as a bullying platform, but does something a little different here. It tackles a subject of those that have been bullied or even those that need an emotional need and turn themselves into a persona that's not them, but it's what people like, so they portray that persona on social media to get the sense of belonging that is missing from their lives. When professionals say social media is a drug, this is a film that gives a perfect example of this, and examples of what happens when you have the risk of social media being taken away. The film does a successful job at proving its point on messaging in a suspenseful and thrilling way, and borderline uncomfortable. As things start to unravel, it will make the audience almost feel numb to our characters because we don't know who we want to root for, and you can tell this is an on-purpose approach by Barlow and Scenes. Each character's development is not the characters we saw in the first half of the film. We take a dive into people's social personas, and it plays like a social Hunger Games. Now, Sissy isn't perfect. The overacting cast, with the exception of Aisha D, does become more and more distracting as the film goes on. It's like Jim Carrey doing a live sold-out poetry read, and some of the shots in this movie make it look extremely cheap. Some of our characters become cliché by making dumb decisions that we'll see in a standard horror movie, and this is where the movie tends to make it known it was meant directly for streaming. These things are not a consistent problem in the film, but when they are there, it is noticeable. But given the uniqueness of the story that doesn't follow the same formula as many on social media topics and theme, these things will hold the attention of the audience. Sissy is an interesting watch, and for new filmmaker Hannah Barlow, she does a spectacular job for what it is. For what they create is impressive for the well-balanced substance without getting lost in standard horror cliches most of the time. Its tone is a hit or miss, it's overacted by a lot of the cast, and can feel cheap and apart here and there, but the pacing is spot on. It proves its points without preaching them throughout the entire movie. It has its thrills like it's intended to do, and the characters, even though overacted, are energetic and keeps us engaged in what their next action is. I'm giving Sissy 3 stars.
The Movie Wire podcast.
Here we go.
Brooklyn, it's your time to shine.
This is Brooklyn on the Movie Wire.
The podcast you've been waiting for. The Movie Wire is your show. The place to find what you're looking for. Movie lovers, the time has come. The Movie Wire.
Well, it's here. After 29 years, the cult film phenomenon Hocus Pocus gets a sequel in Hocus Pocus 2, which follows 2 young women, Becca, played by Whitney Peak, and Izzy, played by Belisa Escobedo, who accidentally brings back the Sanderson sisters to modern-day Salem and must figure out how to stop the child-hungry witches from wreaking havoc on the town once again.
Hey, happy birthday. Thanks. So what are you guys doing tonight?
Birthday ritual, scary movie marathon, same as every year.
You know, legend has it. It's on the 16th birthday that a witch gets her powers.
Another year begins anew. Maiden, mother, and crone too. We call on thee with one request. Help our intentions manifest.
The Sanderson sisters. I bet you're looking for the stage. Always.
I find the story of how Hocus Pocus became such a phenomenon more interesting than the actual first film, and I can do an entire mini-series on how this came to be. Now, when the original movie came out, I was its target audience, and like most when checking the movie times in the local newspaper, my family was desperately still trying to get into a non-sold-out showing of Jurassic Park. Even at 11 years old, I was glued to the movie section of the Seattle Times newspaper, reading reviews by Seattle film critics John Hartle and Jeff Shannon. And sadly, the widely respected John Hartle, who next to Gene Siskel, Roger Ebert, and Jeff Shannon, was one of my favorite film critics growing up, and he recently passed away over this summer at the age of 76. I just recently found that out when I tried to pull up some original reviews of the original Hocus Pocus, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank John Hartle for being part of my childhood and helping me drive my passion of film, and also encouraging my love of reading by opening up the Friday newspaper to read his reviews. So I want to give one final thank you to John Hartle for all of that. Now, I remember seeing the advertisement and reading the review of Hocus Pocus back in '93, but it didn't appeal to me over the other movies that were out. But just like most of the world, I was still in dinosaur mania buying tickets to Jurassic Park. I never saw the original like most of us in theaters. Hocus Pocus' success ran when it came out on VHS. Now, at 11 years old, I remember watching it for the first time, and after it was all said and done, I pressed rewind. Not to watch the entire movie again, but to rather watch just that one show-stopping scene where we see our 3 sisters perform I Put a Spell on You. This, to me, is what made that movie. That performance knocked some sense into me where I felt like I was having some fun. But more specifically, in that musical number, I remember where the song is coming to an end and we see Winifred, played by Bette Midler, turn her back to the audience of dancing parents and give a single nod and acceptance to her sisters before the witches slam their hands up in the final power note. That scene I fell in love with, but to judge a movie based on one single scene wouldn't make sense, and I'm not here to say the original movie was a masterpiece and deserves a cult following that it does. For some of the audience it was targeting, it was successful in that. It's just the fault of bad marketing and a horrible release date. Now fast forward to 29 years later, at 2022, thanks in part to the fan following, we now have Hocus Pocus 2. that brings back our three Sanderson sisters, Winifred, Sarah, and Mary, played by Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. Hocus Pocus 2 again opens up with an even earlier glimpse into the life of the three witches before they became witches, and gives us a little bit more of a hint at their origin rather than just the start of a movie in current times. And I have to be honest, the main reason I was looking forward to seeing this movie was in hopes that we would get another show-stopping number that piqued my attention in the original. Right when we see our sisters return to Salem, the story wasted no time into having the sisters burst into song singing "The Witches Are Back." This gave me hope in the sequel that it started the movie with being well aware of itself and what made the first movie likable. When our Sanderson sisters return, you can tell the cast interact with each other like they're good friends that haven't seen each other in a long time. Midler, Parker, and Najimy visually look like they're having the time of their lives in this movie. Normally, this is a good thing, especially in a family movie where it encourages the audience to have fun with them. But at times it comes across a little bit overboard. After the initial reunion of Midler, Parker, and Najimy start to even out in their performances, and they take it down a notch. The movie's first half has some good nods to the original and of course expected jokes about a virgin, and an amusing scene involving Walgreens that got me to chuckle more than I should have. Then humor runs dry in the second half of the movie as well as the dialogue. It loses the charm of what it kicked us off with. There was another element missing that I couldn't place my finger on until the very end, and that was a small, subtle sense of danger from our three witches. The writer Jen D'Angelo seemed to miss the mark on balancing the amount of humor and menace within our witches. The first film wasn't scary, but there was a small hint of menace and danger within the witches, and we don't get that here. Instead, we have our two friends, Becca, again played by Peake, and Izzy, played by Escobedo, confront these witches with no sense of danger or wonder, and approach them with a sense of young, unbelievable confidence that we would see in a Disney remake of, I don't know, if Disney remade Home Alone. Oh, they did. That doesn't help support the drive of the movie to get the story where we want it to go. Our Sanderson sisters and our two best friends have good chemistry when they are on screen with just their respected parties, but when they are all together on screen, the movie suffers. I mentioned what made the first movie special to me when it comes to likability, and that was the show-stopping number of "I Put a Spell on You." I was relieved to see the Sanderson sisters step on stage, so I'm getting ready for my musical number. Now, if you are like me and that is one of your favorite parts or the biggest factors of the original movie being memorable, you might just shrug your shoulders at this one and go, meh. Though the song choice is clever and works for the story, the song feels thrown in and doesn't really affect the story in any way. In the first film, we had the main kids in the crowd trying to warn their parents, and while they're in the crowd, it added a sense of danger and adventure. And when you add a hot track to an emotional feeling, it heightens the experience. The sisters cleverly sing one way or another, and don't get me wrong, the song sounds great, but I found myself more attracted to the well-choreographed crowd moving along the streets of Salem to the beats rather than I did watching the sisters singing or movements. The first Hocus Pocus was innocent enough and at least entertaining to watch, with memorable characters and knows its audience. Hocus Pocus 2 misses the mark, and still, while innocent enough and entertaining for at least the first half of the movie, it loses steam in the last half and it tries to do too much and forgets where its charm comes from. There is a Hocus Pocus book sequel that was published a few years back that had a better story and nod to the fans. I would recommend checking that out if this sequel didn't quench your thirst for our Sanderson sisters. For the most part, it's enjoyable, but at the same time, we can't expect it to hold a candle to what the first movie made special. It is a good couple of hours, but at times it does overstay its welcome, and it loses some magic that made the first one special. I'm giving Hocus Pocus 2 2 stars. All right, and Brooklyn is back this week, so say hi to everybody.
Thank you for that marvelous introduction.
Hello, people.
We watched Hocus Pocus when it first came out, and we had to put a halt on last week's episode because you weren't feeling very good. But I'm glad you're back this week, and I am dying to hear what you thought of Hocus Pocus 2. I gave it 2 stars. What did you think of the movie?
It's kind of hard to process because it's hard to say. Both the movies I really liked, and I don't know what to say about this one that much.
What was your favorite part of the second one?
I like when the mayor was in line trying to get something, and then when he lost it.
The candy apple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was like, no!
Compared to the first movie, what do you think was different between the second Hocus Pocus and the first movie?
Well, the witches, they seemed very used to that time. And then the first one, it was all modern and, and they were so confused and they thought the cement was like dark black water.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of chuckled at that because it's kind of weird. They were like, oh my gosh, it's black water. We can't touch it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point on that one. So there was a little sense of wonderment to the environment that they were in the first one. And we kind of see it when they're in the Walgreens in this film. But then we don't see anything after that. And with a lot of the technical advancements we've had since the first movie, I mean, you see one of the sisters riding robot vacuums, which I thought was pretty clever.
And then them drinking masks and eating masks.
Yeah, in the Walgreens, yep. So I thought that was pretty clever. But beyond that, we don't really see a lot of taking advantage of the environment as a comedic vehicle. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would.
Now, I have to ask you this because, again, I said it in my review, and it was one of my favorite pieces of the first one. I don't know if it's so much the second one, the musical number. What did you think of the musical number in the first one and the second one? And which one was your favorite?
That's hard. That's very hard.
Or did you even like the musical numbers?
I like the musical numbers. It's just hard because I like them both.
Which one do you think added to the story more?
The first one, I put the spell on you.
You gotta have your lunch ready to have the fun. All right. Yeah, cheer up. Let's go, guys.
Hello, sailor. My name's Wilfred. What's yours? I put a spell on you, and now you're gone.
And what do you think made that so special about the first one?
Because, well, they were at a party.
Mm-hmm.
And there was people dancing to it, them singing, and they were like, I put a spell on you. And then they actually put a spell on them.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, they didn't put, did they sing anything that says spell in it?
They did.
They did?
Yep, same one as the first one.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't sound and feel like
I
that.
say apple pie, acro baby, up and die.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that was the actual lyrics, but
that was.
They say apple pie?
Apple something.
We'll have to Google the lyrics here.
Yeah.
We'll Google it, and then we'll do it together.
No.
Oh, all right. It could be fun.
No.
Please?
No.
Give you some ice cream.
No. Only from Dairy Queen.
Deal. All right, so make sure I have this straight. We're going to Google this, and we'll say it at the end of this review, and I will give you some Dairy Queen ice cream.
Promise?
Pinky swear.
Okay.
All right, it's a deal. It's official.
Okay.
So, and how do you think they relate to each other in this movie versus the first one? Do you think they still have the same relationship, same chemistry?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Think they interacted well together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think part of the fun of the first half was seeing them back together. It looks like they're having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, it's like a reunion. And I was really happy when they came back that they busted into song.
Yeah, they were like, wait, what was it again? It's like...
The witches are back?
Oh, yeah. The witches are
back. Stone cold sinner.
Please,
that's
no.
Witch,
No.
I'm better than...
I should have done that. No.
Okay, you sing then.
No.
Well, somebody has to sing.
No one has to sing.
Yeah.
No.
I'm a witch.
You're a
I'm
bad
a witch.
singer. Stop.
Stone cold meanies, as a matter of fact.
I will cover your microphone.
All right. I'll sing this later. I have the soundtrack.
I know. I hear it every night in the bathroom.
Yeah, the witches are back. Stone cold meanies, as a matter of fact.
I love those songs. You know I love musical numbers.
Yeah, but too much. Way too much. I hear like Pinocchio every night.
That is for your baby brother.
No, it's not.
All right, you caught me. Okay, so you like the experience. So I got to ask. So what did you like better, the first or the second one?
The first.
The first one?
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite thing about the first one that the second one maybe kind of missed?
The very end of it.
Yeah, without giving anything away, I think the ending in the second one was kind of weak.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of just drug on a little bit.
Yeah. We're like, "Ah!" And then the first one is like, wee.
I have no idea what that is. But you get an A for effort. How about that? All right. So first one, the first Hocus Pocus. What would you rate the first Hocus Pocus? Just out of comparison.
3.5.
3.5. Okay. And the second one, what would you give?
3.
3. Okay. So we're pretty far off, I think.
What was that voice crack?
I'm growing up.
Everyone has voice cracks.
Yeah, I'm becoming a growing man, so my
oh
voice
my
is starting
gosh,
to
you
change.
had your voice cracks like 20 years ago.
All right, you caught me. It's not easy being 20.
It's not 20. You're 39. You're maybe 40.
All right, you caught me. I'm 22.
No, you were not.
All right, so you're recommending Hocus Pocus 2.
Yes.
I'm giving it 2. Miss Brooklyn is giving it 3. And Brooklyn, you remember our deal?
Oh gosh, no. Oh, let's get this over with. I
love this. I don't know what you're talking about.
Now I wish I was at football right now.
We're going to football right after this, but I say enter pi alpha baby up and die.
I say apple pie,
up and baby, up and die.
I say apple pie, I can't say it.
Why does it sound like I'm torturing you while you're saying this? All right.
I can't say it. It's like I'll say apple pie off of the pie.
What?
That's what it looks.
I say enter pi alpha maybe up and die.
I say apple pie alpha maybe apple pie.
In Kama Koriyama.
In Koriyama.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Say
bye, people.
That was an awesome ending. Does that mean the review's done?
Yeah.
You ready for football?
I guess so.
Go grab your stuff. Say bye.
Bye, people.
And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. Next week, we will be back with brand new reviews, and I will be joined yet again by our young critic, Brooklyn, to help review Lyle Crocodile. And again, thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram and Twitter and leaving me a review. Until next week, do me a favor, make sure you stay for after the credits to show your support for those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film, and make sure you support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show, or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.